The voice of Sherry. Durian Asia.
Hi, welcome to the Durian Heat, where we discuss critical issues from Southeast Asia. My name is Grace Cho. International Women's Day is a worldwide event that celebrates women's achievements from the political to the social, while calling for gender equality. It has been observed since the early 90s and is now recognized each year on March 8. Today, I'm going to speak with Sunitha, who is a Chair Environment and Climate Change Commission National Council of Women's Organization (NCWO) and a founder of Panita Jaya. In line with International Women's Day, we're going to discuss on why gender matters are big matters at the Durian Heat.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
So International Women's Day has marked its own achievement of women, probably for more than a century, and it's looking ahead another about 15 or even longer years to the world's gender equality goals. And this year's theme, we are talking about International Women's Day, which was just a few days ago, Planet 50-50 by 2030, and Step It Up for gender equality. It focuses on the building momentum for the effective implementation of SDGs. And under UN Women Step It Up initiatives, there are several commitments on women's matters, and we can talk about whole aspect from gender equality, women's empowerment, and women's human rights. So, Sunitha, could you elaborate further how did it start and why this is so important?
First of all, I think the International Women's Day is very important because it recognizes the important contribution that women give and play in the development of our world. And this year, in fact, if we look at it, we're looking at pushing for the campaign for the International Women's Day looks at a pledge for parity, and that goes in line, I think, significantly in supporting the Sustainable Development Goals, which all the nations have adopted last year, and to which we will be rolling out for the next 15 years or so, and up to 2030, as you had just mentioned.
Yep.
So in order to have a development that's equitable and inclusive, because that's the whole theme for the SDGs, is the inclusivity, is that women have to be part of it. So, not be left out. So this year's International Women's Day is quite significant in that sense, and this is where we sort of, I think, most of them will be going to New York to take stock of what has happened, and also to see where we can move forward. And this is important because as we celebrate, what women has achieved and what women has contributed socially, economically, cultural, and politically, we also have to acknowledge the great amount of work that's needed, to make things better for the future. So for me, that's why it's important. It's not just about women, I think. It's recognizing all the important voices that makes things happen.
I totally agree with that, because recently I've watched these very interesting video clips on YouTube to ask just elementary school kids, to just ask them when it comes to invention or great works in history, who do you think first? And most of them answered, but they're all males. So when you talk about the recognition, you're right there. We need to put more work to acknowledge their work, and also to educate our younger generation to let them know who has done what has been done to make this happen until now, and then we are living with it. And a lot of them are also females.
Yes, most certainly.
Yeah.
I think what we have to look at also is the fact that a lot of the work that women do are actually invisible.
Mhm.
And that is something that we strongly need to address, because this issue of invisibility actually it tends to at some point creates all these barriers to women's participation, because you tend to segregate what women can do, whether it's in terms of, like for us who work on issues of development and gender, we look at it as paid work and unpaid work.
Right.
So we sort of split that. So
Mhm.
women are generally focused on this unpaid work, like means looking after children, anything that's within the realm of the home or the
Right.
community. That, like I say, it's invisible. It needs to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
yeah, that's true.
yeah, it's happening.
Yeah.
But then it's happening invisibly.
Mhm.
So whether taking care of a sick child, and what kind of food to give or what kind of care to give, it's all taken. It's not as important.
As if they're just a natural thing for women
Yes,
to do.
yes, and that's also something that we have to. Well, yes, we celebrate that because that's the important knowledge
Of
that
course.
women have.
Mm.
But at the same time, I think we strongly need to slowly acknowledge all these things,
Mhm.
and these are barriers that actually stop or impede women's participation.
Mm.
Whether they right now, as we see more and more women who are more educated, are able to do a lot of things, this somehow is a baggage which they still carry.
Mm.
And we need to recognize, because men also can do this unpaid work.
Of course, they
Yeah,
can.
Yes, and some of them are doing, but the thing is that we need to recognize it, and these are things that's important, because as we celebrate Women's Day, as we plan our policies and economy, I think there are many studies to it.
Mm.
Many studies to it, that our tools that we use for governance, whether it's an economic policy, mainly it's your economic policy, because that's what runs our nations anyway. Even ASEAN was put together as the economic community,
Right.
and that's the critical tool, because it creates, and it also is a tool to remove barriers. And these barriers that I'm saying are very structural, because it impacts how women's rights are realized. It addresses the inequalities of this unpaid, as I said, this care work of whatever that we assume is natural and responsibility and duty of the woman at home. And to actually promote more sharing of growth, more sharing of work. These are important things that needs to move at this day and age.
That's very true.
Yeah.
So basically this event marks very important day for women especially, of course, and also it was celebrated in many countries. They've had several campaigns and also the platforms to celebrate this day. However, let's come back to Malaysia. What did we do in Malaysia?
Well, the Women's Ministry did celebrate. They do that every year, the International Women's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, as I said earlier on, it's also about not only about celebrating what women have accomplished, but it's also about stock taking. And if you look over the years, we have made important gains. Yes, we had to some point a stagnation in our women's labor force participation, but we are slowly overcoming that. We also have improved women's participation in terms of women in decision-making levels. Of course, there's much to be seen in terms of women's participation in politics.
Right.
Yeah, but overall, I think what it shows that over the years we have had a tremendous amount of gains, and these are important. But as we go on, what are the challenges? I think that's more important also to recognize. What are the important interfaces that what impacts women's rights, women's rights to participate, opportunities for them to participate. I think those are things that we really need to unpack and peel and address.
Right. That's the end of our first segment at the Durian Heat. Don't go away. Stay tuned with us. We'll continue our conversation after this short break.
You're now listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing.